And that's the coolest, least responsible, most wasteful way to open a bottle of champagne. Champagne is lovely by itself, but for those special occasions, it's wonderful in a cocktail. Today, I'm going to go into the science behind perfect champagne, how to open it like a pro without losing precious bubbles, and what other options you have beyond the pricey French variety. I'll be making two very different cocktails that'll make any party unforgettable. In every bottle of champagne, there is about 9 grams of dissolved carbon dioxide. That's about 1/4 of an ounce, and it doesn't sound like much, but it equates to 5 litres of carbon dioxide gas. So bear in mind that a bottle only holds 3/4 of a litre of wine, so it's packed in there at high pressure. And it's the carbon dioxide that makes the wine fizzy. How you open it and at what temperature determines how much of that champagne and fizz stays in the bottle. I've got 2 identical bottles here. This one's been chilled to about 33 degrees and opened properly. This one's at room temperature. When champagne is cold, it can hold more carbon dioxide in solution. When it's warm, that CO2 wants to escape. Look at the difference in the bubbling here. You can see the warm sample has more of a foam that's accumulating at the top, whereas the cold one, much less of one. The bubbles are also finer and more slowly moving than the warm ones, which are bigger and faster. More fizz is staying in the colder sample. If you don't want to lose any of your precious wine, proper opening technique matters. First, remove the foil, pull down the little key, and then to open it, it's always 6 counterclockwise turns. You need to keep your hand over the cage at all times at this point. Tilt the bottle to a 45-degree angle. This allows more of the foam in the bottle to dissipate, so it's less likely to overflow. Point it away from people and breakable things. Grip the cage and cork tightly, and slowly twist the bottle, not the cork, until it comes free. It should release gently with just a whisper, not a loud pop. The louder the pop, the more violent the opening and the more likely it'll foam over. The difference is dramatic. Gentle opening prevents mess, aggressive opening wastes champagne. And chilling your bottle means that more bubbles stay in your drink, which is what you really want when making cocktails. Before we get to using this champagne, I want to thank Teak House for sponsoring this series. This is their extra large cutting board, and you can see that it's thick enough not to warp and it'll stay put. But it's also light enough for me to pick up easily. And if you're looking for something smaller and more maneuverable, their bar board is also a great choice. Now, let me show you the simplest and most elegant way to turn champagne into a cocktail. The classic champagne cocktail from 1862. This has just 3 ingredients: a sugar cube, aromatic bitters, and champagne. But the technique makes all the difference. First, I'm soaking the sugar cube with about a 1/4 teaspoon of bitters. Note, I'm adding the soaked cube to the flute rather than adding the sugar and then the bitters. You'll see why in a second. I'm going to pour the champagne, like I would a beer, down the side of the glass tilted at a 45-degree angle. So this reduces the distance the wine falls, so there's less turbulence and less foaming. This is equally true when you're pouring a mimosa or Bellini. The fruit pulp really makes it froth. See how the bubbles are already forming around that sugar cube? Those rough edges create the perfect nucleation sites. The carbon dioxide that we kept in the wine by chilling it and opening it carefully is now coming out. As the bubbles form, they're carrying the aromatic compounds from the bitters to the surface of the wine and delivering their fragrance to me. Now, a lovely final touch is a lemon twist. I'm going to use a channel knife for this. Just run it horizontally around the lemon. This way you get multiple long strands from a single lemon. The cocktail evolves as you drink it. The first sips are bright and citrusy, but as you progress, it becomes beautifully balanced as that bitter-infused sugar cube gradually dissolves. Making sure the bitters are in the cube, not on the glass, allows that to happen. It creates this beautiful gradient effect. So this looks like it's going to be a sweet drink, but really only a 1/4 to a half of the cube actually gets dissolved, and more towards the end of the drink. For a bit of extra oomph, you can add a 1/2 ounce of brandy before you add the champagne. Brandy and champagne go remarkably well together. Talking of brandy, if you're celebrating with the crowd, let me show you something really special. Regent punch. This is an 18th century royal punch prepared for the Prince Regent, and it's perfect for New Year's Eve or any big bash. It's the drink I pull out when I've got a lot of company. It uses a classic cocktail technique to extract the deeply fragrant oils from some citrus. So I muddle some sugar with lemon and orange zest, Cocktail nerds call this a quick oleosaccharum. That's Latin for sugar oil. You just muddle it until the sugar starts to look a little bit damp and clumps up. And at that point, it just starts to smell amazing. Like, it smells so good, like the most concentrated citrus you can imagine. Adding the bubbles from the champagne will send that aroma up into the air and right into your party. Then I stir in 2 cups of very strong green tea. The Prince Regent loved his champagne, and the green tea was supposedly the only thing that kept him vertical. For the spirits, we're using 12 ounces of brandy, 6 ounces of aged rum, I'm using a Jamaican one, and 2 ounces of maraschino liqueur. These are fully flavoured spirits that are a beautiful contrast to the dry sparkling wine. Then I'll add 10 ounces of orange juice and 4 ounces of lemon juice. I'll stir everything together and then strain out all the zest. And then I'll stir in 12 ounces each of chilled water and ice. And I'll stir that together until everything melts. Then we'll chill the whole thing until we're ready to serve. Because we added a measured amount of ice, this drink's actually ready to serve now, but you can store it in the fridge if you're not serving immediately. When your guests arrive, transfer the punch to a punch bowl. And gently stir in a chilled bottle of sparkling wine. This will make sure most of the bubbles actually stay in the drink. For this punch, champagne is obviously great, but it's pricey. My favourite substitute is cava. It's made the same way as champagne with a secondary fermentation in the bottle. Actually, that fermentation process is very similar to how kombucha is made. I have a whole YouTube video about kombucha if you want to take a deep dive into fermentation. Whereas real champagne only comes from the Champagne region of France, 95% of cava comes from Catalonia in Spain. Both champagne and cava come in styles from bone dry to very sweet, but they use the same grading scale. Look for bottles that say brut or extra brut on the bottle. These are dry styles with just 1 to 2 teaspoons of sugar per bottle, which balances out their acidity. Add a little ice to keep it cold, and then garnish with some citrus and some mint. And then you can serve in punch cups or wine glasses. This makes 16 servings and can be made without the wine up to 3 days ahead. There's so much going on here. This is what makes an incredible punch. Balance, intensity, and complexity. You can't really pick out any one flavour. It just comes together as one harmonious whole. And the bubbles add a mild prickle and make the whole thing smell so fragrant. So remember, great sparkling wine cocktails start with proper technique. Keep everything cold, open bottles gently to preserve carbonation, and pour down the side of tilted glasses to minimise foam. Whether you're making a simple champagne cocktail for 2 or an elaborate punch for a crowd, understanding the science behind carbonation makes all the difference. If you like this episode, you will love our new book, Cocktails Illustrated. It's packed with hundreds of recipes, cocktail science, and explanations like these.